Hey again, everybody. Welcome to our program today. I shared some guidelines in the chat, but I'll reiterate them for you. So you will be muted today for the program. If you have any questions, you're welcome to use that in our chat. You should see at the bottom of your screen a little icon that has the chat function. We also have the Q&A function for you as well if you prefer that. The chat is only for presenters, so if you ask a question and you don't see it on, if you don't see it right away, it's okay. Um, and I will be helping facilitate. My name is Zoe Francisco, and I'm here joined today by Dr. Zlata Stankovic Ramirez, otherwise known as Dr. Z. And she's here. I'll let her introduce herself and we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming to our program today. I am so excited to be here and share some best practices with parents about how to set up environments for young children. This is actually my topic of interest. I wrote a dissertation on this topic and I've studied it since 2016 pretty intensively. So thank you so much for being here. I hope that the things that we cover today are going to be helpful to you as you set up the perfect environment for your children to play, learn, and grow with you. The title of our talk is Place Matters, Built Environments Impact Child and Human Development. My name is Lata Stankovic Ramirez, but everyone calls me Dr. Z who knows me, or Z, so feel free to refer to me as Dr. Z or Z. I am an assistant professor at Texas Women's University in Human Development and Family Sciences. I teach mostly child development courses. Currently, I'm teaching a child guidance course, and I'm also teaching a child development and play course. So our topic is perfectly aligned with my daily work. I teach, I research, I publish, I go to conferences, all the things that professors typically do. But most important role I have is I'm a mom of two children. I have a son whose name is Daniel, and he's 10. And I have a daughter whose name is Lola, and she is 2. And I will be showing you some of her environments later on in a later part of our program, just to show you how I've set up her environments, just to be a helpful guide to all of you here. We are going to focus on children 0 to 5 in our training. I think without further ado, we can get started. I did get my psychology degree from SMU in 2005 and my master's in child development in 2009 from Texas Women's. And of course, I completed my child development and early education PhD from Texas Women's in 2021, where now I'm a professor. I did teach at Coastal Carolina University in South Carolina for 2 years and 1 year at University of Texas in Dallas. And now I'm back being a pioneer and at home. So I continue to study physical classroom environments. This is my topic, and it's something that I'm researching actively now. So let's look at some of the things that are important to all of you and I got to give you some concepts and background as to why built environments matter. So we will talk about built environments for young children, high quality childhood education at home and at school, and also what's developmentally appropriate. You will hear me say these phrases today, and I don't want you to be intimidated by them. Built environment just means an environment that's man-made. Higher quality early childhood education just means that we provide quality for children, whether they're at school or at home. And developmentally appropriate practice means, is this developmentally appropriate for the child's age? So what that means is, are you expecting a 2-year-old to sit for 35 minutes? Because they can't, their attention span isn't there. But can you maybe expect a 4-year-old to sit for 30 minutes reading stories and doing interactive activities, hands-on activities? Perhaps. So that's just what I mean when I say developmentally appropriate practice. So just a couple of terms that I might use that you might need to know as we sort of proceed. So what are we doing here today? We're going to talk about what a built environment is. So what are built environments? We're going to talk about how the built environments shape children and shape us as humans and why they matter. And also, how can we be intentional with children's places that they have at home and their classrooms. So both children's homes and classrooms matter, and what's in those spaces matters. So we'll talk about some of those. If you have questions as I am presenting, please feel free to put them in the chat. Our moderator, Zoe, will pause as I am going through our presentation to ask me some of your questions. I really want to make sure that I address any question that you may have as we go forward. All right, so why does environment matter, right? Well, physical environments that children are in have an impact on their learning. So what that means is that we need to be intentional with those environments. When we're intentional in how we set things up, and how we construct that environment, then we are really giving children the highest of quality. We are giving them the best that we can so that they can be successful, so that they can actually learn and play and thrive in those places. So if you have intentional environments, you're going to give quality education to your children at home and at school. And also, it's same for therapeutic settings, right? So experiences for all young children tend to be based on what is in their environment, who is in their environment, what are they doing with whom, and what's happening. So studying the phenomenon is actually pretty advantageous. So without using the word built environment, let's talk about what are built environments. When you guys look outside of your window into the world, so I'm looking out right now, you will see built environments. Those are environments that have been conceived and constructed by human hands. So in modern developed and developing countries, people spend most of their time in and around buildings and constructed landscapes. So in most parts of the world, we are in a building. We're in a building to work, children are in a building to learn at school. Everywhere we go in most cities and places in the United States for our work, school, or leisure, we're going to be in a built environment. Now, as you guys know, during COVID, we were all shut down and forced to be inside. But even before COVID and after COVID, all studies have showed that increased percent of our time is spent 90% or more inside these environments that have been conceived and constructed by human hands. And so where we are physically and in what's happening around us in our built environments truly has an impact on adults, but especially on young children that are 0 to 5. So because adults and children spend a lot of their time in built environments, they're important. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I'm going to give you some statistics. 1 in 4 Americans spend the entire day without going outside. In 2011, 12.5 million or 61% of children under the age of 5 were in childcare arrangements like centers and family homes. And just think 10 years later now, even more children are in some form of an arrangement where they are not with their parents at home. In our current economy and where we are, more parents are needing to work. Two parents both need to go out into the workforce to be able to provide for a family. So that number has actually increased quite a bit in the amount of children that are spending time in childcare centers. Most of you probably have children who are in childcare centers, either part-time or full-time, and that's actually very typical and becoming more the norm. So early childhood environments influence children's development and become part of their biography. What that means is they're spending their childhood in their early childhood education classrooms or at home with us or on the playgrounds and parks or with grandparents or with friends. So they are always in these built environments with people that we trust to take care of them. Young children actually spend an average of 30 hours or more in non-parental care. So like I said, that number continues to increase. And so those environments become highly, highly important. So here's some built environments. Something that you might have thought of and think of as a built environment is a library, right? You're inside a building, there's books, someone made it. But also sometimes we're like, oh, well, I took the kids outside and they were in nature, and we think of the playground that we take them at the park. Well, this is also a built environment that's curated by humans for children. And although, yes, it's wonderful for them to be outside, it's not a fully natural, not untouched by man's hands type of environment. So we actually group all of that as built environments in research and say, oh, yes, that's a built environment. So your child, if they're in an early child care program, is in a built environment. And your child, if they are in a playground outside, is also in a built environment. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that that there is not a difference. If a man-made hands have touched it, then it's considered a built environment. Now, let's do a quick short activity. I'm going to have all of you take a minute to think about your childhood and your happiest moment. And I'm going to time us. And I want you in the chat, please, and Zoe will capture this for us, to tell us exactly where you are. Your happiest childhood memory from 0 to 8. Close your eyes for 60 seconds, and I'm going to time us for 60 seconds. And then please in the chat, type for us, where exactly are you and what are you doing? So what's around you? What do you see and what are you doing? And let's get ready to do that. Ready, set, go. And I'm going to be checking the chat to see. All right, I'm going to start reading some. Kristen said on a playground at a faith-based preschool with slides and swings, singing and enjoying other kids. At a pond, watching sunrise and birds wake up in the trees. Playing at an outdoor pool. I'm riding my bike, drawing with chalk on my back porch. All right, I'm going to type mine in. Yeah, please keep typing them in. Perfect. That was about a minute. Sitting on my grandma's couch eating bread, okay? Playing with friends in the streets at the beach. Yeah, so these are typical answers when I do a training with teachers or parents. This is typically what they say. They're with people that they love and trust, and they're outside. And nobody says classroom usually. Gardening with my grandpa, exactly. Nobody says classroom, and nobody says, just playing in my home. There are always people that we're surrounded with those relationships that are key. So, unfortunately, our children are spending a lot of their childhood and their time in their early childhood classrooms, and they're also spending a lot of their time in our homes. And so, how do we create that magic is that we have to interact and play with them, and we have to set them up for success in that play space so that they can really enjoy bonding with us, having a relationship with us, and having those interactions that are so key and crucial to them, right? So when have you been in an environment not altered by humans, and what about your children? So this is my next question. I'm going to give us a minute for this as well. And I want you guys to tell me, when is the last time that you were in an environment where you were not in a man-made environment? So like in a forest, on a hike, truly fully in nature that has not been altered by humans. So I'll give you guys a minute for that. I just want to hear you and your children. When were you last in those types of spaces? So let me make sure that I see your responses. Let's see. All right, let's look. All right, feel free to put that in your. I went on a hike, but about 2 months ago. 2 months. So how many of you have been in a space that you were not? You went to Broken Bow in March, Oklahoma, but the trails are still man-made. And Megan, that's okay because obviously they've made a man-made trail for us to pass, but nature was around you. So that we would count Broken Bow for sure. College kids actually have been to a lake or wildlife area. Not a lot of chances in Texas. Closest I can think of is the fields up in Wisconsin, but it's still a built environment in June. Yeah. So we are not, unfortunately, going to non altered environments like we were before. We are in built environments, and that's just what's happening right now. We aren't getting to be just out in nature and one with nature as much as we used to be. And that's really, really important for children. Studies show that when children are in nature, they truly learn some of those problem solving skills that they need, social emotional skills. Also, it releases endorphins in your brain that tell you that the sun and nature are having a positive influence on you. So we are not doing that as much, and that's something to really focus on. So if you do have a chance to take your children to a national park, even or to somewhere where things aren't man-made, it's really, really beneficial to do so for them. So why does all of this matter? What is the big deal about 0 to 5? Why are we talking about 0 to 5? The human brain actually develops 90% in the first 5 years of their life. It's the most crucial times of all of our lives. What we see, what we do, what we eat, and where we spend our time really matters. So early childhood matters. We have all of our base set in these very first 5 years of life. So that's why it's crucial and critical that what our children see, what they eat, what they do, what they play with, where they are, who they're with, is something that we are very mindful about. And like I said, a physical classroom environment is where children actually play out the themes of their childhood. So you get to see their interests, you get to see their triumphs, some of their problems, concerns, the sum of the physical and human qualities that combine to create a space in which children and adults work and play together. A lot of times there's this misconception that, oh, the kids can just play. Our children want to engage with us, they want to play with us. They want us to be engaged and play with them. And so when we create spaces that are comfortable for them and for ourselves, then we're really getting to have that relationship in that environment. One of the analogies that I like to use is think about watching a play, like a famous play like Romeo and Juliet. And you might have two amazing actors, and they might be just so perfect with their timing and their emotion and their presentation of the story. But if there's nothing around them, if they're on a blank stage, it's going to take away from that story. But when you add in the correct props and the correct imagery, it really transports you to that time and that place and that story. And I like to think about our environments for young children in the same way. When we set up places for them to play and we have things at their level, accessible to them, then they can play out those ideas that come to their mind and use their imagination in an appropriate way. But they do need us to be their co-actors. They do need us to be involved and engaged. So environment is another teacher in the classroom or home. It's the silent teacher and the third teacher. And we like to say that in child development. So what type of environment do we need for each age group? So I'm going to start, I gave you some big global concepts, and I'm going to start talking about each age group for a little bit. And then towards the latter part of our time together, I'm going to focus on one specific age group and show you some real life environments. So what are environments like for infants, for babies, for 0 to 12 months? Well, infant classrooms and homes and home care and places outside of home need to feel inviting and cozy and safe for infants. And they need to provide opportunities for infants to explore, to move, and space where children can move about freely is so crucial and paramount to their development. So there's a hashtag going around called free range babies. And we in early childhood really love it, and child development really love it, because we want children to be on the floor exploring their spaces and having the ability to move their muscles and learn how to take care of themselves. Infants' perspective is extremely important. So what I highly recommend for parents of young babies is to lay on the floor. And I know this sounds silly, but try it. I've done it in infant classrooms and infant spaces, and it's really helpful. Lay on the floor on your back or on your stomach so you can actually see what the child sees. So keep toys and photos and books at that level. So the lower, the better. And materials accessible at their level so they can actually see the things and learn from the things and enjoy the things that are in their environment. And they can also access the things that they need. The less restrictive environment provides babies more opportunities to practice their skills and to develop and grow in a healthy way. So, for example, I'm going to show you an infant environment. So best infant rooms provide room for exploration. So if you look at this image, you can see that they have cloth and board books. I highly recommend cloth and board books for infants, because if they have paper books, they are going to try to tear them. They're going to get some saliva on them, and they could swallow them, swallow some of those pages. So it's important that you keep board books and cloth books and soft toys. And if you also look over here, they have a pull-up bar for young children, so children can pull up. And of course, provide a mirror at their level. Infants love to look at themselves, their facial expressions. This is sort of how they're discovering themselves. So this would be a great environment for infants. Books, manipulatives, balls, soft blocks are all typical items that you see in the infant room. Now, if you notice, this little girl is able to reach the books. They're all facing forward so she can see the pictures and pick out what she likes. That's first thing. Second thing, I see some manipulatives here that are in this basket. So this is something that the infant teacher probably disinfects and puts up and puts down. You can create the same thing at your home for an infant, where you have a soft mat, where you have some books that are facing forward and at their level, some manipulatives that you can put out. Here are some soft babies, and put a mirror at the bottom on their level so that they can see themselves and explore. Now, how do we store things for infants? The best infant rooms provide room for exploration. So in this image, you see that the books, the board and cloth, and soft toys are provided in infant class, right? But here I showed you a picture of a soft basket with books and toys. And these are balls that a child can easily hold and also manipulate in their mouth. And it's also something that's easy for you to have on the floor for the kids to access and also for the kids to put back. One of the questions often get asked by parents is, well, when can kids clean up after themselves? I'm so sick of cleaning up after them all the time. And my belief is that kids can clean up when they can sit up. So what that means, if they have the ability to sit up and they're playing and crawling on the mat, if you notice also this mat here is soft, but we're done, I take their hand and I show them the balls go in here and the books go in here, and let's put everything up before we go wash up for lunch. So I think you can start those things early, and you will see the dividends of that as they become toddlers and twos and threes. They're going to start cleaning up and putting things back in their place. So I think that you can start that process early on. But you do have to keep in mind that you have to put like items together and not overwhelm the children with expectations of cleaning up things that are not the same category. So, notice how this is just balls and this is just books, and that's all that's in the basket. And that makes it easy for an infant to clean up. Also, let's talk about some restrictives, and this goes for you parents at home. Children do best on the floor without being buckled in. And of course, in preschools, licensing limits the amount of time they can spend buckled up. They don't want them in there more than 20 or 30 minutes at most, depending on what state you're talking about. But babies need to be close to and held by their caregivers. Now, should you use an infant seat or a mamaroo or a floor seat to assist you and help you? Absolutely. But where should children be spending most of their time? On the floor, on a soft mat, being able to move their arms, their legs, so they can learn how to walk and sit up and eventually be independent on their own, right? So that's a little bit about infants. So let's talk about toddlers. So now they're in their toddler stage, but they need to move, explore, and have opportunities to develop. Those centers emerge in toddler environments and provide mobile toddlers the opportunity they need to absorb the world around them. Now, this is where this baby has now stood up, started walking typically, and is ready to explore. Everything goes in the mouth. We know that. And we know that everything that's at their level is up for grabs. So in your home, this is really the time where you're going to have to take some time to make sure that your home is childproof, and that you have your electrical outlets covered, that you are mindful and move things that you don't want broken or explored with toddler hands up high. I have a cabinet behind me, and things that are valuable go up high. Things that my toddler can play with, my 2-year-old now can play with, are where they're accessible to them. So this just takes a little bit of rearranging and rethinking what you do in your home. But some things that toddlers start being interested in, and you'll see this in their classrooms, and you can set that same thing up at your home, are art. They like blocks. They like reading. They like acting things out. They like to listen to music and move. They do like math and manipulatives. They like to count and start to want to count, identify colors. And then, of course, they like being out in nature and science, but we all do as humans, right? So, do these spaces need to be the same size? How often should you change? What should be on the walls? I want to touch on these a little bit. When you're setting up your home environment, yes, you should have some things that your child can explore that are artistic, some things that help them build, books so they can read, some things that they can pretend with and play with. Yes, you should have music and movement, some math manipulatives, and of course, nature and science. You could bring some of the things outside in to explore with young children. That's cost effective. And so, yes, you should consider the things that they have in school and these what they call centers or areas, and think about your home when you're intentionally setting it up to have some of those experiences for them at home. And so how often should you change the materials? This is a great question. I have noticed just in my own practice with my own children and talking to teachers, I've interviewed teachers and asked them, but they say that typically when a child loses interest in something and is no longer playing with it, it's a good time for you to put it away. Maybe you bring it back later, but put it away and try something new. I typically rotate my spaces for my young child at home every 3 months. That's just my rule for myself because I've noticed that after 2 to 3 months, majority of the books that my child is reading or toys that my child is playing sort of lose their newness and excitement if they've been explored with enough. And so that's typically what I've done. I've changed them seasonally. Now, in their preschools, they might change them weekly, every 2 weeks, every month, every 3 months. So that will vary depending on what preschool you have your child in. But at home, I think it's typically good for you to purge and look at the environments every 3 months. I do the same with like clothes, shoes. All those things are audited and looked at so that we don't end up overwhelmed with so many toys and books and things in our space that our children are no longer interested in using. As far as the walls are concerned, the rule for schools is 80-20, 80% at children's level, 20 at adult. In your home, it's always good to put some of their art that they've done, some family pictures, some things for them at their level so they can see it. But of course, like you're going to have your own home decor and things at adult level, and that's absolutely fine. But don't forget to bring that mirror down for the little ones or a painting that they've done that you framed at their level, things that they can see. Again, same thing. If you get on their level, like usually if you get on your knees, you can see what they see, and that can help you sort of make some of those good choices for them, right? So let's look at a toddler's space. So this is a typical classroom space. And again, this can be a great inspiration for home. If you have a shelf, you can organize it as so. If you notice the books here are facing towards us, so you can see the picture, and that's always what we want for children. And notice here as well, these butterflies to the left of the books. This is a piece of art with different butterflies, but it's placed so that the child can see it. Here are some more things that you can put out on shelves. And so even here, if you, I just wanted you to see that even in this image, all of the items, see these four drawings are done, paintings are done by children, and they're framed and at their level. So everything is, here's another mirror at their level. Here's a plant at their level. Here's some things that they picked out outside that they can work with. Everything is at their level. So everything is like waist down. And that is a really good way to figure out where you're going to put your pictures and your mirrors and your frames for young children is waist down in spaces that you intend for them to play in. So they need that space to explore their independence and to have those areas where they can learn and grow. But a good rule is waist down. You can start creating some of those images. Now, here's an image of my son in in his room, in a play space when he was a toddler. He's 10 years old now. But toddlers really enjoy dumping items in and out of containers, and they enjoy classifying those items and putting them in categories. So they need caring adults to label things for them in their environment. So, for example, I laid these out. We were going to the zoo a lot at that time, and we made the animal noises and talked about what they are. I put a few magnifying glasses so we could explore them together and look at them closer. But if you look back here too on his toddler table, you'll see that this was a favorite infant toy that he had. So sometimes I do keep those things that they love and that can transition with them. And it had some items in there that he liked to pull out and put in, a little frog, airplane, elephant, and such. And so some things I would bring back to the environment that were like favorites and something I loved and still showed interest in, when I would rotate things out. So that was something new. That was something he was familiar with. And this was in his toddler environment. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing that's really important, and I think that sometimes parents shy away from, is providing crayons and leaving them out. So he had a little cup that had crayons right here. The cup is not pictured, but it was there. He had a few crayons, your primary colors. We were working on red, blue, and yellow, showing him things in the environment that are red, blue, and yellow. And so that he could scribble. Here's some paper. He's sitting at the desk and he's scribbling. And yes, those would be out. Now, some parents might ask me a question, Dr. Z, are the kids going to color on the walls? Yes. Can you Can you remove that? Yes, you can. Magic erasers are wonderful for that. And I'd rather have a child have the ability to walk up and draw and paint when they want to and walk back than for us to take it out and give it to them and put it away. Because when they want to be expressive and creative is then up to them and they have control over that environment. Same goes for Play-Doh. I also started putting out Play-Doh for my son early on. And one of my friends came over for a play date and said, "You have Play-Doh out? Aren't they going to put it everywhere?" And again, it's our job and responsibility as their parent and adult to teach them how to use the materials. So we demonstrate and show them, and then we allow them to explore with it. So I believe in having crayons out and Play-Doh out for young children. I think it really fosters that creativity and expression. And as long as you teach them how to use the materials appropriately, then it can just be set out in the environment to do. So they do need access to materials readily. Often art materials are put away and toddlers only have access to them when adult pulls them out. Like I said, the Play-Doh, the paint, the crayons. But it's imperative that toddlers have full access to art materials throughout the day. So when they're playing, they might get an idea and go draw something and scribble something. So that's just something to keep in mind. So now let's talk about twos. The twos physical environment. Twos now need to move, they need to explore and have opportunities to develop. They have defined centers usually, so we can actually start having spaces for them that are defined, and they are more independent and they can also clean up and put things away. Remember, those dividends will get paid back to you if you start at 6 to 8 months showing them how to clean up and put things up. They'll know generally when things go. And even someone asked me, like, well, if you redo them every 3 months, how do they keep up? When I say redo, I mean like they might have new books, but the books are typically in the same shelf. They might have new materials, but they know that's where their play materials are. So that consistency of where things are stays, the materials change out. It's imperative also to remember that as language emerges, they can express preferences for they want to spend their time. And they can also tell you what items they like and what they don't. So you will know they're like, I don't want to play with that doll anymore. I don't want to play with that soft toy. And that is your sign to either use it as a keepsake, sell it, or donate it, right? The moment that your child tells you that they are no longer interested in an item, you can store it and maybe bring it back later. But if you bring it back later, they're not interested, then you know, okay, it's time to either sell, donate, or save, right? Keepsake. So some typical areas that you might see in a toddler environment and a twos environment is art, block, literacy, dramatic play, music, math, nature, science, sand, water, and other additional centers. Again, that stays the same from toddler to twos. And they, of course, start to spend some time in those areas. So you can create those areas in the home and you can actually have an expectation of your child to play in the dramatic play space or to play with the math and manipulatives or read their books for an more extended period of time than they did as toddlers. Twos are ready to get creative. So allowing opportunities that help them explore and grow and give them those intentionally rich experiences will really help strengthen a lot of their skill set. So you're going to want to let them explore. They want to get dirty and get their hands dirty. And most paint is washable. And of course, the more chances that they get to touch those sensory exploration experiences, the better it is for young children. You can do this at home with them, put paper down and, just let them really, truly get their hands dirty and messy and then clean up afterwards. Another thing that's really important for twos is what I like to refer to as provocations. That actually comes from a concept of Reggio Emilia. And what that means is you have areas set up in your home. So, for example, this was in my home. There's a toddler table and the mirror at the child's level. But I set up a Mr. Potato Head, one that showed my child like what was happening and the other one with all the body parts. It also helps sort of name those things that go that are on our bodies, like eyes and nose and ears, and even putting on a hat. And this is called a provocation because these items are intentionally set up and left out for children to explore. So you set up those opportunities to help them get excited and have them explore a new material. I just repeated the same exercise. Like I told you guys, my son is 10 now, my daughter's 2, with my 2-year-old, and the potato heads are a hit. That's a classic toy that you guys all also probably grew up and played with, and it's one that still rings true even for my children. So I was excited to see that excitement was there. It also helps them with fine motor skills to be able to like get that nose right in where it belongs and get the ears right in where they belong. So these provocations are really important. So this is what I say when I say, this is what I mean when I say intentional environments that you set up and that engage children and get them really excited to be in the environment and to play. So then, you would sit there, and as they would try to do this, if they can't, you assist and help them and talk about each body part. So they're learning how to construct, they're learning about body parts, and they're also having that time to explore and have a meaningful interaction with you during playtime. So I'm going to group children 3 to 5 together, because now that children 0 to 3 and like 3 to 5 or 6, children 0 to 3, they need to have these rich environments. Children that are 3 to 5, they're already in those rich environments. If they're starting school or in school, they're seeing those centers and areas set up for them. And they know that I go here to draw, and I go here to do science and math, and so forth. So then it becomes a little bit easier, I think, for parents to create that at home, because you can replicate some of that, and you can actually probably get away with having majority of those items in their room. And so what do children learn in each of those areas? So typically what you will see is a library, a dramatic play, art, blocks, manipulative, science, math, music, and a sensory space. And so I'm going to tell you what they learn in each area. So obviously in the library, children learn from infancy to toddlerhood to twos. They learn how to have those pre-reading skills and about storytelling and stories and sequence. This area or center strengthens their love for books and builds on their vocabulary, and they learn sequencing and reading. So it helps them with their word association. So the library is very needed. So I highly recommend that you have a library for your child, that you have some sort of a shelf or a way to display books facing forward so that children can sit and read with you and engage with you in storytelling. In the dramatic play, they start to explore their different roles. If they're able to put on costumes and pretend that they are a bird, or pretend that they are a firefighter, or pretend that they are a pilot, those things really matter to young children, and they can try on some of those roles that they see out in our world and talk about them. It improves their gross and fine motor skills, and by watching others, they also improve their social and emotional skills. So setting up somewhere where they can dress up is also important. Of course, I already talked about the importance of art, and I'm going to reiterate it here again. It's just as important for 3 to 5s. They express themselves using their imagination, they problem solve, they use their critical thinking, fine motor language skills. And they also build their social skills and their self-esteem. And like I said, having Play-Doh out, having art out, having paint out is really, really important for children. So when they feel that creative urge and they want to express themselves, they just have the ability to do so. So think about where you can set up an art space for your young children. Of course, all children need blocks. They learn math, science, and language in the block center, and they learn how to problem solve, and their creativity grows, and also build self-esteem. So again, having some blocks for them to explore with is another great material. Also, just so you know, all of these materials are not excessively expensive, and you can readily get at majority of places. So, I'm going to encourage you to get some of those basics that we know children need: books, blocks, balls, art, costumes, all those things you can readily find for fairly cost-effective in fairly cost-effective amounts that children really learn and grow and thrive from. Manipulative, so when children fit small pieces together, they're working on those fine motor skills and concentration, and they learn to match and sort and classify. So in that block center and manipulative centers, they learn how to follow directions and their number concepts, as well as critical thinking. So it's important that you have some of these small items that the children can work with, because it's imperative to their growth. Of course, in science, they're learning to explore through their 5 senses. At home, you could like cut up an orange, a lemon, a lime, and have them taste it and smell it and touch it. And that's really a fun experiment for them when they're learning about their sense of taste. You could do the same for smell, touch. You can explore with the senses very easily at home with young children. They build their language skills, and they discover patterns in the scientific method. And of course, math, they learn their shapes and spatial relationships in Math Center. You could count, when you're at the grocery store, how many tomatoes are we going to get? How many bell peppers are we going to get? So you can do those things out in the real world. And also, like at home, you could help them count things that you wouldn't necessarily think of that are going to help with those math skills. They learn to pattern, sequence, and count and problem solve. And they learn one-to-one correspondence and counting objects. So those are things they're learning at school that you can replicate at home. Of course, music allows children to creatively express themselves. You could listen to music, you could dance to music, you could have them play instruments. Children love to engage in music 0 to 5. So children in music centers are learning their timing, their rhyme, and patterns. And it really does bring a lot of joy to children to have a music area. Now, this is one that typically parents aren't quite sure about. So what do we do to provide those rich sensory experiences? Well, in sensory centers, they strengthen their fine and gross motor skills and they learn to problem solve in their language, but they also improve in their social skills. So some of the things you can do at home is put shaving cream and let them run their hands through it when they're 3 to 5. When they're 0 to 3, you're going to want to do whipped cream because they're going to put it in their mouth. You can also have them touch Jello. You can have them touch things that you already have in your home because those sensory experiences early on are really important so they can get used to textures that they're not quite used to. Let children play outside, let them play with dirt and mud and water and sand. They need that. All children need that. So highly important that you think about that when you're engaging in play at home with young children. All right, now before we get to this piece, I want to pause here and ask, are there any questions in the chat that you may have? So Zoe, let's see if there's anything in the chat that we need to focus on before I show them the environment that I've created and some of the best tips on how to replicate that in their home. So let's see.
It doesn't look like we have anything right now, but we can take a minute and see if anything comes
All
in.
right. So as they do that, and then before we move forward, I'm going to go ahead and open up an image and talk about an image that I just set up for my 2-year-old. And maybe some of those questions will come. So let's look at an environment that I set up. So just recently, my daughter on September 22nd turned 2. And like I said, I usually every 3 months change out their environment. So I want to show you some of the things I have in her shelf, just so you guys can kind of know. And you'll see some of the things that we just talked about manifested in real life, right? So here are crayons and paper just out, but ready for her to pull, put on the table that's right there, and just explore and play with. So this would be like her art example at home. Here you see these blocks. These are just your blocks that you can build a city with. There's some trees and bushes. There's a couple of cars. So she can replicate some of the things that she's seeing in her environment. And so this would be like her typical block area. Here's a puzzle that has some shapes. So that's math and also learning colors. And so I have that for her to be able to pull out and work with. Here are the potato heads that I highly believe in and recommend, and that you can play with young children with, and that would be dramatic play. Here you have some magnets. There's balls and long rods, and this really helps her explore science and look at how things have cause and effect. So putting the magnets together with the balls, pulling them apart. So we have that. There is an extra puzzle under there as well. So sometimes I pull that out in case she wants to keep doing puzzles and ask for more puzzles. And here you have some typical music instruments. You have some maracas in there. You have a little drum. And so this allows her to explore that. So if you notice some of those centers I talked about that she has at her preschool, my daughter does attend a preschool from 9 to 1, Monday through Friday, and then spends her afternoon with her grandmother. That she's home with us in the evenings and weekends. But some of those things that she's experiencing at school, she's also experiencing at home. So there is that homeschool connection. We also have some books up here that we're reading right now. These are just your, uh, classic favorites of a 2-year-old. We have Brown Bear and the spider and the hungry caterpillar. And this one is the one that talks about moving different body parts. And we have a small tea set for her for dramatic play. So these are sort of things that I have set up already in our environment in the living room. So accepting the fact that children are going to want to be where we are. And so she has that ability to play in the living room and to be with us when we're in the living room, moving around and putting things up and even cooking, dinner in the kitchen or playing or hanging out together or putting away laundry or whatever is happening, she can be right there with us. So I did notice some things in the chat, Zoe. So do you want
Yes.
to tell
I
me?
was waiting for you to finish
Yeah, go
your
ahead.
But okay, so one question is, kids' toys are very commercialized these days. Does the type of material that goes into the toys matter? Montessori and native versus plastic with sharp colors?
Yeah, so that is a great question. So I think that honestly depends on what school you send your child to and what your preferences and what you believe in is best. Maria Montessori does believe that we need to use materials that are real life and that are free of plastic and that have intentional, purposeful learning. And so absolutely Montessori toys tend to, have less of those toxic uh, pieces. However, I truly believe that, like if you notice, I like to mix and match Reggio and Montessori teachings. So like I'll have like the glass containers for the crayons and the paper, but like the blocks are just wooden blocks, and the puzzle is made out of wood, and her instruments are wood. But her potato heads are plastic. So yes, there is definitely you should be looking at what are the ingredients in the materials and toys that you use. But again, my number one thing that I say to parents about toys is as long as toys don't light up and talk and make noise and do all the work for the child, those are the types of toys that I tend to stay away from. And majority of early child educators and child developmentalists say don't buy those toys because it reduces the amount of language that children are having. But I am not one that opposes plastic because obviously I have, Mr. Potato Head who's plastic, but I think there's a lot of value in that. So I think we have to be very intentional when we buy toys and discriminatory when we buy toys. My biggest rule is no talking, no singing, no lighting up. I don't want the toy doing all the work for the child. I want the child to use their imagination. So if you notice, like in this shelf, she has to use her imagination in order to interact with these materials. Does that answer your question? Will you check, Chloe? Zoe, sorry, will you check and see if that answers her question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And
All
then
right.
another question is, how many toys is a good number to be at
Yeah.
hand as to not overwhelm the 1 to 2 year olds?
Wonderful question. So, recent studies actually show that no more than 9 types of toys are good for children under 2. So, like here, you see that there are books up top, literacy check, art check, blocks check, math check, science check, music check, and dramatic play check. So, I have maxed out 9 type, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 but I am at my capacity. So no more than 9 types of things. And that's why if you see also in each square, I put in just one type of thing. So that is the latest research that I've read is no more than 9 for children under 2. As children get older, like 2 to 5, they're saying up to 12, but always be thoughtful about the types of items that are there to not overwhelm. So that is a great question. You're absolutely right. And it's below 2, it's 9, and from 2 to 5, it's 12 from the latest research that I've looked at. So great question. All right, Zoe.
Yep, I think that's all for now.
All right, so let me move on to the next image. And you guys, please feel free to ask those questions as we're looking at these different images. So another thing I want to show as well is in that same space, I have a basket that has soft toys in it, only soft toys. And this is something that she can easily pull out and play with, but also put away. So it's very important that we create opportunities for children to easily access their items. It's at her level. She can pull them out, she can dump them out, play with them, but also put them back. So making it easy for children to access and clean up is highly important. So I want to show that that's in that space as well. Another thing that happens in this area is she received this dollhouse repurposed from her uncle actually for a holiday gift. And what I've put here are things I've gotten at Lakeshore. So a couple of places that I typically buy items from are Lakeshore, that is the teacher store, and they have a lot of learning materials, and I like to do that. And this is kind of where I focus on an area like this particular, obviously, theme is numbers and math. So, we have the counting bears, you would see those in the preschool classroom. We have the fish that's multicolored that she can count. Here you have some pegs that she can peg. That's a fine motor skill, but we're talking about numbers. There are some tactile sensory experiences here, some things she can touch as we talk about different categories of vocabulary we're working on. So all of these items I did purchase at Lakeshore, and I tend to buy or ask for when someone asks me like, what do your kids want for, the holidays, or what do they want for their birthday? Where can we shop for them? I tell them that Lakeshore is a great place to shop. And I'm not affiliated with Lakeshore. This is just where I have purchased a lot of learning materials for my children. So that's also in this area where we are and where we reside. And then Zoe, as questions come up, feel free to interrupt me as I kind of go
Yes.
through each space.
Okay.
Um,
So we're
yes,
going back to the light up toys.
yes,
They said that my first son was not interested in those, the light up toys, but my
yes,
second son is all about
yeah,
these. He
yeah.
dances and moves with them. Is that fine?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Yes, so you're gonna have your children are gonna be, show different interests. I'm learning this with my 10 and 2-year-old, absolutely. And here's what I will tell you: light up toys and toys that make noise and do the activity for the child, I would keep those in one area and I would access those with them. As long as you are there to also provide some language and singing and movement while they're interacting with those toys, I think those are okay. But I would not have them out for them to play with because they're not having an opportunity to use as much language as they would with non-light up toys. So I'm glad that that question was asked, because if you look here, here are a couple of babies and dolls, and like there's a bottle in here that you can't see, but things to do with babies, some soft toys, some small figurines to play with, and then some books that I sit and read with her are at the top, but she can reach these. Behind here is a small puppet, a opportunity to do some interactive things. There's a hula hoop there. So here are things that she can access. So again, nothing lights up, makes noise, or talks. You have to use your imagination for every single thing that's in this environment. So I'm not opposed to those. I would get those as gifts as well. But I did keep them all in one bin, and we would pull the bin out and play with it together. Does that help answer the question?
Yes. And we have another question.
Please.
Could you please repeat the number of different toy groups you mentioned or you
Yes.
recommended for the different age groups?
Yes. So 0 to 2, no more than 9 types or groups of toys, and then 2 to 5, no more than 12 types of toys. And remember, those classic toys that we played with still stand true. Obviously, you need books, blocks, balls, art supplies, science materials, math materials. So all of those centers and areas that we talked about that I have in that previous shelf, like I just showed, all of those are toys that you can get for all children ages 0 to 5. And you know what? As a matter of fact, let's click back on that so that they can sort of see. So as you can tell, this is science, this is block, this is art, this is math, this is music, here's literacy up top, and dramatic plays here. And you can change those out to be different materials as children are no longer interested in them. Like I said, I typically rotate toys every 3 months, 2 to 3 months. And so you can switch those out, but I usually tend to put things in the same place. Like if I change this out for Play-Doh, then that would be Play-Doh. If I change these blocks out for like different types of blocks, that would be different. If in math I wanted to do like, something different where they're putting pegs together, then pegs would go there. If I had something different for dramatic play, let's say we wanted to play pretending to have a birthday party or something, then I would put that here. So I typically keep things in the same squares, but I change out the materials. Does that answer the question? Let me know if Zoe, if in the chat that was sufficient
Yes, I
for.
will.
Perfect. And then here is it on that. So on the other side of that, here are the books. And I do rotate these, of course, as interest wean. And if you notice, there are 12 books. So sometimes if I have like a lesson that I'm trying to teach, like right now, we're teaching my daughter how to say excuse me, and we're starting to introduce the potty. So I'll have those at the bottom so she can easily access them, because I'm going to want to pull those out and read to her. And she also pulls them out and reads them. Also, keep in mind that this is easy for her to clean up. Now, she won't put them back in the same order, and that's fine. We can't expect children to put them back in the same order, but they know this is where books generally go, and so they can put them back. Yes, we do have a Bluey book. Someone asked me that question last time I showed this. If you are going to watch or have your children watch cartoons, Bluey is one that I highly recommend. It's about mentally appropriate. It absolutely teaches children social emotional skills and encourages parents and children to play together. So that is one cartoon that we watch. And what I like about Bluey 2 is there are 7 or 8 minutes. So you can watch two or three and say, well, we watch three cartoons versus like other cartoons are 30 minutes and they want more. And then they're like, oh, you just let me watch one. So it's definitely one that I recommend. But if you want to know what you should be watching with your young children, Zoe, will you drop in the comments commonsensemedia.org? Parents can go to commonsensemedia.org and find out what shows are appropriate for their young children. I see there are more questions in the chat. Feel free to read some of those to me.
The previous question said thank you. So that answered their question.
Good.
And it looks like that's all right now.
Good. So I just wanted to show this full view for everyone. So they could kind of see that this is in our living room area. So to the left of this area is our actual, sectional and coffee table and TV, all the things you'd expect. But to the right are all of these items for my 2-year-old to explore. So we can actually engage and play with her. And she sometimes brings things to us and, shows it to us if we're like, sitting down on the sectional. So this is me embracing the fact that I have a young child that's 0 to 5 and knowing that they're going to want to be where we are. And instead of fighting it and putting everything in her room, just accepting it and having it be part of our normal decor, right? So I call this like family chic, right? So I think it's important that we accept when kids are 0 to 5 that their things need to be in our environment. They're part of our home. They're going to want to be in our environment. So I just wanted to show you a full view so you guys could see that we've incorporated that into our home, fully accepting that this is what our home is like now since we have a small child. And to take that further, even here next to the kitchen, like our kitchen door is right there in this corner. But here is her play kitchen. She also has a little play stroller, some, kitchen items. And so again, embracing the fact that when we're in the kitchen, she's going to want to pretend to cook and do those things. Well, it's right next to the kitchen where she can explore and learn from those environments. And this is all before we ever even get to her actual room. Here's another thing that I want to show you in the living room. So right behind our sectional, we had this blank space, and I'm using it to have her toys here. These are all from Love Every. That is a subscription box, and they do send you toys that are age appropriate and Montessori inspired for children every 3 months. They can be pretty costly, but I do recommend you look on Facebook Marketplace. If you want to buy a whole kit for an age group, you'll have those. I did do a podcast with Nurture Nuggin, and they asked me like about toys subscriptions and what do I think and are they good and should you? I do think it takes a lot of guesswork out for parents, honestly. These are two kits I've combined, her last two kits, and there are lots of things for her to explore and do. And I did leave this floor mat open so we could get on the floor and sit and read their books and play with their toys in the back of our space. And again, you can they're costly to buy new, but you can find them on Facebook Marketplace in good condition for a fairly reasonable price. So we have all of these different environments for her to explore. In the living room, near the kitchen, by the dining room table, anywhere we are, spending majority of our time, she has dedicated spaces to work. And that's even before we're going to take a look in her room now, the things that are in her room. I also do want to point out that I do have a couple of items in the bedroom as well. Again, when I'm getting ready in the morning to start my day or, go teach or go do something, it's important that I am able to do those things fairly easily. That's in her room. Let me see if I can pull up. Yes, it's right here. So I do have another shelf like this, a smaller shelf with books and toys. And this is just some blocks and some things that she can do while I'm getting ready in the morning. And here as well are some books and some music. She's really into building and music, so I figured I'd put that there and some more books. And so those are things that I have in the bedroom dedicated to her so that when I'm getting ready, she can entertain herself and interact with those toys as well. Do we have any other questions before I move on to her room, to her own dedicated space?
Someone would like you to repeat the subscription-based toy company that you
Yes, it's
mentioned.
called Love Every, Love, and then the word every, Every, but it's just one E. So Lovevery. So that's the subscription that I have, and I find that I like it, and I do think that the materials and toys are quality. So that is one that I'm subscribed to, but there are many out there. So definitely do your research and see which one fits one, your budget, and two, your needs best. But I am doing that with her since she was an infant to two, and they go all the way up to four. And I plan on probably continuing on with them till she turns four because I do find that she interacts with them and they're engaging and educational. Any other questions? So just some more, and Zoe, as they come up, you just let me know, but just some more. So here we are in her room, and again, same thing. She's got blocks, she's got some dinosaurs. She's into dinosaurs right now, so we're doing that for science. For dramatic play, I have a birthday, Melissa and Doug play wooden play structure that's like a birthday cake and candles, and she truly enjoys this because we were preparing her. It was her brother's 10th birthday in August, hers in September. So we were preparing for all these birthdays, and she was into that. So I have that here, and then I have music, and then I have Lego building here. These are Duplos, so they're appropriate for kids that are 1.5 to 2 years old and up. So we have those in her environment. And of course, there are some books here and a couple of night lights and a night soothing machine here. But again, same concept I have in the living room, I replicated in her own room. Another thing I have in her room that I think is pretty special is this space where she can sit and have some refuge. Children sometimes need a moment to themselves, and so she can pull this over her. And it's safe and see-through and sit in a small chair with a book or read. And I do now, here's something where I say no light up, no noise, no speaking for the child. But I do believe that you can have, like, this is called a Tony box. And what it does is it actually reads stories and plays music for children. And so they take these characters and put them on, and she truly enjoys that and puts them on and listens to a story or has music and plays with it. So again, if something is emitting music, that's of course appropriate for young children to have. Here also I have a basket of books. So sometimes, like, I have the 3 books displayed, but we want to read something else. It's right here. I can sit with her, and that's usually at night if we're getting ready for bed or she just wants to read. Also, it's important that you include some adult seating so you can sit and be in the room with your child. Again, if you're creating spaces to play and interact with young children, then you need to consider those spaces and be mindful that those spaces fit the things that you need. So I just really wanted to show you guys some of the things I've done for my 2-year-old and some of those best practices of rotating every 3 months and of making sure that toys and materials are not overwhelming or overstimulating to young children. So what other questions do we have before I move on to the TED Talk? Are there any other questions? I have a short TED Talk to show you guys before we wrap up our time together. Zoe, is there anything else?
Not right now.
All right, so to wrap us up, it is imperative that all of you just take the time, how many ever minutes you have, 5, 7, 15, 20, up to an hour, and play with your young children and interact with them. I have this saying, 1 hour a day is really all you need to be intentional with your children and to sit with them and engage with them and play with them. Yes, it is easier when your environments are set up. Yes, it is easier when things are set up for your child to interact with and engage with and be curious about and play. It does make it easier. But I know that working parents are very busy. And I know that when you get home, you have to do laundry and dishes and clean and do all the things to make the household work. Don't forget to involve your children. They do like to participate in cooking. They do like to participate in trying to match your socks and trying to do laundry with you. So it's okay for you to incorporate them in those things. But if you can just find some time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour to intentionally play with your children in these setup environments, in these built environments, that's truly what's going to bring them joy. Remember, all the things I showed you today is setting the stage. Now we need the actor. And the actor in that is you and your child interacting together and playing together. Remember some of the things you enjoyed when you were little and things that you found just so amazing and wonderful, and share those experiences with your children. I think that that's really the key. So yes, set up the stage, set up the environment, and do as much as you can to be intentional with what's where, and to engage your child at their level, have things accessible to them, have things that they enjoy and love, rotate them out, do the things that we talked about. But remember, the most key ingredient in all of this is you interacting with your child. And with that, I'm going to give you guys this TED Talk to wrap up our time together, and then I'll take questions after the TED Talk. So let's do that next. All right, let's see if I can make that happen. All right.
If you have a child 12 or older and you like for them to get into the
All
best
right, here we
university
go.
possible, I have something.
What if I was to tell you that a game of peekaboo could change the world? Sounds impossible, right? Well, I'm here today to prove it's not. Hi, I'm Molly, and I'm 7, and this is my little friend Ari. Say hi, Ari. Hi. And this is my neighbor, Mama Josh. He has to take Ari away now to get ready for our experiment. But don't worry, they'll be back. My talk today is about some powerful things that grown-ups can do that shape us as children and the adults we become. How do I know? Because my parents and people around me did them early and often. I know not all kids are as lucky. Some of my friends, some kids at my school, and many around the world. And I would really like to help change that. Thanks to scientists, we now know just how important the first 5 years are for our health and development, especially our brains. Ari started learning long before he was even born, from inside his mummy's tummy. When Ari was born, he was tiny, and he cried all the time. He was always hungry, and he pooped a lot. Now he laughs and giggles and makes funny noises. But those are just the changes we hear and see. There's way more going on inside. So, let's talk more about our brains. The blue bag is the rough size and weight of a healthy baby's brain at birth. The red one is a baby's brain after the first year. It almost doubles in volume. And by my age, it's almost 90% the volume of an adult brain. Our brains develop faster in our early years than at any other time in our lives. It can create up to 1 million neural connections every second. But we need your help. Our healthy development depends on these top 5 things. 1, connecting. 2, talking. 3, playing. 4, a healthy home. 5, community. All of this helps our brains and does reach our full potential. So what's something you can do that can really make a difference? Scientists call it serve and return. That's just a grown-up way of saying connect, talk, and play with us. And here's the really big news. Amajot, Ari, you ready?
Ready?
Copycat games build imagination and empathy.
And
Naming games build vocabulary and attention.
Ari, Daddy, Ari.
And games like peekaboo, yep, peekaboo, actually build memory and trust. Each time you talk to us, play with us, make us laugh. It not only builds and strengthens our relationships and mental health, it actually teaches us some of the most important life skills. From making friends, to taking the test, to getting a job, to one day maybe even starting a family of our own. Interactions early and often matter. Take it from me, the 7-year-old up here, talking about brain science. Okay, now let's see what happens when the connection is taken away. So now he's trying to get his dad's attention again. He's reaching out like, that was fun, why have you stopped? I know it's important for adults to use their devices sometimes, but kids are hardwired to seek out meaningful connections. Not receiving them causes confusion and stress. John, please re-engage. Now, what if a whole childhood was like that last 30 seconds? How hard it would be for a child to feel calm, to feel safe, to learn to trust anyone, and the lifelong impact that would have. That makes me feel sad. Ari only reacted the way he did and recovered so quickly because the connection between him and his dad is usually so strong. The positive relationships with the grown-ups in our lives gives kids the confidence we need to try new things, to explore, and be a kid. So please try and remember the most special period for our development is the first 5 years, starting from inside mommy's tummy. What's something really impactful you can do? Serve and return. And when? Early and often. Please give it up for Amachot and together. It's an opportunity to connect, talk, and play. Imagine the difference we could make if everyone everywhere did this. To us, to children, it's so much more than just a game. It's our future. Thank you.
You are the future. Pursue tech careers with a
All right. So I wanted to share that because I think it's extremely powerful for us to think about how, yes, we need to absolutely set up these amazing built environments for our young children, but us interacting with them is what they crave, what they need, and what's going to make the most impact. So with that being said, please make sure that you are intentional with what you're creating, but that also you're intentionally spending time just fully focused on your children, engaging in play and engaging with them so that they can feel that connection, that joy, and they can learn, grow, and thrive just by being in your presence. Thank you all so much. That's all I have for all of you today. And now I will take any questions that you may have. Zoe, are there any questions in our chat?
Not at the moment, but I was wondering if you would
Yes.
mind if I shared your email with the attendees in case they have any further questions.
Absolutely not. Let me give them my email where they can reach me. Put in chat zlatastankovic@yahoo.com. If any of them have any questions or post our time together, they think about something, oh, I wish I would have asked Dr. Z this or that, please have them email me to my personal email, which is zlatastankovic@yahoo.com. And thank you all so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I hope for all the parents that took the time to be with us this Friday afternoon, really learn some good and valuable tips and have a little bit of better understanding about why built environments matter. But just playing with your children is the key. So go out there and enjoy and play and engage with your children.
Before we wrap up, I have some things to share. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen.
Yes.
And we got a few thank yous in the chat as well.
Oh, of course. You guys are so welcome.
So, let's see. Okay, so again, thank you, Dr. Z, for joining us today. We are so grateful to have you and to hear what you're really passionate about. It's really great. So for upcoming programs related to early learning, we have parenting conversations. This is a virtual event where you can connect with other parents and just enjoy discussion and gain perspectives on how to help your children and their parents. And this is led by a child development specialist. We also have a lot of other events. I didn't list them all, but the most upcoming ones, we have some puppet shows, Felt Tales at Haggard, and Busy Baby at Par. And we have a full list of all of our programs on our website at planolibrary.org. I also linked it in the chat. And if you have any, if you want more additional resources, we have in each of our libraries a parenting collections for books and medias covering child development and families. We also have our YouTube channel where this session is recorded and will be published, and our past early learning programs as well. And one of our databases is Miss Humblebee's Academy, which you can access from our website as well. And you can help your preschooler prepare for kindergarten readiness and for elementary school. If you have any questions and would like to meet with somebody, you can always feel free to book a librarian. We have a QR code here, and it's also available on our website as well. But thank you all so much for attending. And yeah, thank you, Dr. Z, for joining us again.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Bye, guys. Thank you. Have a great